What if I told you Britny Fox was this close to the top, then the front man blew it up with one fist fight in a hotel hallway? A band built on sweat and tragedy, undone by ego, silence, and one violent exit. Here's how it all burned down.
Like, subscribe. Thank you.
Philadelphia, 1986. While most of America was glued to MTV, four guys were getting ready to torch their names into the hair metal canon. Britny Fox was a ticking time bomb with Aquanet fuses. Dean Davidson had a scream that could rattle window panes and a vision sharp enough to slice through cheesesteak grease of Philly's bar scene. Michael Kelly Smith, straight from the ashes of Cinderella, wanted payback and platinum. Billy Childs and Tony Destra brought the artillery, heavy bass, harder drums, and a look that dared you to laugh. And when they hit their stride, it was all fireworks and promises. Arena tours, MTV rotation, gold records. For 5 minutes, Britny Fox looked like they might cheat the curse that haunted every band who dressed like a drag queen at a gun show. And then the money started trickling in and the ground gave way. Tony Destra, gone in a car crash before the debut even charted. Davidson's ego blew up, splitting the band from the inside out as grunge circled overhead like a vulture. By 91, the party was over. The hair was flat, and the world stopped listening. Wounds, lawsuits, and 1,000 fans were left still asking how 4 kids from Philly got so close to immortality and managed to lose it in broad daylight. Nobody in Britny Fox tells the same version of the story twice. Back in '85, Philly's underground was crawling with copycats, but Davidson wasn't interested in blending in. Dizzy Dean belt out like a banshee wail 1 minute and charmed the jacket off a promoter the next. He wanted to build this empire, brick by brick, riff by riff. So Davidson had demo tapes, song ideas, and an ego big enough to swallow the city. He raided Cinderella's ranks, Michael Kelly Smith and Tony Destra, and pulled in Billy Childs on bass. And suddenly Philly had this new threat, one with unfinished Cinderella DNA and unfinished business. Now the name Britny Fox wasn't just a glam throwaway. Davidson dug it up from half-remembered family legend, a Welsh ancestor and a coat of arms, turning Britny Fox into a badge dripping with attitude and outlaw blood. Everything about it stuck in your head, just as planned. But the only thing the band could ever agree on was the origin story. After that, the scars outnumbered the stories. Britny Fox had no side hustles, no fallback, no deli counter gigs. Their only job was the band. If rent was due, they rehearsed more. If the fridge was empty, they booked another show. Practice was non-negotiable, day or night. They battered out every song until the neighbors wanted blood. Now, the Philadelphia club scene was our hunting ground. They played every stage, every night, until the bartenders started saving them seats and the local kids came in packs. This wasn't about gig money. Britny Fox was drilling itself into something lethal, sharpening the sound, tightening the hooks, turning every drunken Thursday into a full-scale showcase. The crowd came for sweat, volume, and just all-out chaos. Reputation is bled for, not bought. So while Cinderella's star kept rising, Britny Fox soaked up the overflow, catching opening slots and industry whispers anywhere they could. And by the time anybody outside Philly noticed, the band was already a rumor, hard, loud, and definitely impossible to ignore. Word spreads when you play like there's nothing left to lose. And Britny Fox never had a backup plan. Sometimes every lucky break in Philly bounced off Cinderella and landed right in their hands. However, in this business, nothing stays lucky for too long. So the industry finally came calling, a record deal, actual paperwork, calls that ended in more than a rejection. Nemperor Records sent over the offer like a golden ticket. It should have been the night to uncork every bottle in Philly, but it was the night everything cracked. February 8th, 1987, Tony Destra, the backbone, half their set list did not come back. One car crash and the story split right in half. And Destra was more than a drummer, part architect, co-writer, a friend who dragged the band through every sticky floor in Philadelphia. Davidson understood what was lost. He had been a drummer before taking the mic, and the first label offer hit the same day the band got blindsided by this. But the band staggered forward, shell-shocked and broken, staring at a future that suddenly looked rigged. Adam Ferrioli jumped in, enough to get them back on their feet, enough to keep Sony interested. But Sony was hunting pedigree, a name that would play in neon, a drummer with a story. The label wanted to rewrite the lineup before the ink even dried. And that was the first clue nothing about Britny Fox's ride was going to be fair. For a band with no fallback, this was only the start of a real fight. Unfortunately, there's always more than one left turn in these stories. Now, Johnny D grew up down the block from Billy Childs, grinding through the same Philly rock circuit. He'd been around the block with Wasted, so Eyeliner and Arena Dreams were nothing new. But D wanted to see a contract before he even lifted a stick. Britny Fox got the signature, D got the seat. No outsiders or awkward introductions, just a drummer who already knew everybody's scars, filling the only empty chair. So with D behind the kit, the lineup finally snapped into focus, just in time for their first shot at national exposure. And every band gets a moment where the universe puts the pieces together. And for Britny Fox, this was it. Spotlight never stays where you want it. Losing Destra nearly gutted them, but with Johnny D on drums, Britny Fox landed its most notorious lineup. The faces on magazine racks and poster walls coast to coast. Columbia Records threw $80 grand at them before a single album even hit the shelves. For guys barely out of the Philly club scene, this was a major label bet money. The deal came right after they opened for Cinderella in front of Columbia's execs. Another stroke of luck handed down from the old band. June 6, 1988, the debut album drops and everything goes thermonuclear. The glam metal market was frothing. MTV was the gateway to godhood, and Britny Fox checked every box. Davidson's Wail, the hair, the hooks. Suddenly nobody could ignore this band. And their debut album exploded, one of the hottest rookie records in the country. Every single was a pre-packaged anthem. Every video looked like a riot. And by December, Britny Fox had a gold record, 500,000 sold, counters still spinning. The album peaked at number 39, one rung below the Platinum Club, forever stuck at 900,000 and change. So close you could smell the champagne, but always just a little bit out of reach. And Long Way to Love put them on the map, chorus by chorus. It had that nice gallop and almost kind of a Paul Stanley sounding verse for the vocals. But then all of a sudden that banshee wail kicked in and you knew this was a totally different band happening. MTV played the video on repeat, blasting Davidson's scream into every living room with cable. The song scraped onto the Billboard Hot 100 at number 100, but for a Philly bar band, it might as well have been number one. Then you had Girl School with that really kind of crazy snare rhythm going on, where he's doubling up on the snare, and another total just screaming anthem all the way. And that followed with another video built for cranking car stereos and blaring through arena speakers. Save the Week kept the lighters in the air. And of course, Rock Revolution was about as freaking rebellious as it gets. War on the Road, 130 plus shows opening for Poison, Joan Jett, Rat, anybody with a big enough crowd. Over 625,000 fans saw them live, and Poison brought them into the glam brotherhood. And the press kept lining them up with Cinderella, Poison, AC/DC, Aerosmith, bluesy grit under the gloss, this hard rock backbone, Davidson's shriek cutting through every chorus. And people compared him a lot to Tom Kiefer, as well as Brian Johnson. And Davidson played it up. Every lyric was a shot of optimism, an antidote to burnout. And for a minute there, nothing could slow Britny Fox. Every show was a victory lap. Every new fan another brick in that monument. But nothing gold lasts forever, and sometimes the thing everybody envies is just a fuse waiting to burn out. Britny Fox looked bulletproof on stage, but behind closed doors, the seams were splitting. Fame brought bigger crowds, bigger egos, and a new layer of pressure. Drummer Johnny D called it. The whole thing was dysfunctional from the jump. Slow motion car wreck at their highest point. And he would later say that the band could be their own worst enemy, with issues bubbling long before anybody saw the warning lights. Billy Childs wasn't surprised. He'd seen the fractures with Davison before the Sony contract was even dry. But the main fault line in the band? That ran through Dean Davison and Michael Kelly Smith. Smith felt the gravity shift every night. Davison wanted Britny Fox to orbit around him, turning a four-piece into the Dean Davison show. Smith, who had already survived Cinderella's implosion, saw it coming. Davison chafed at the Cinderella connection, convinced it kept the band stuck in another shadow. He hated being seen as a spin-off, even as the link opened doors. And arguments weren't just about credits or spotlight, they were about ownership. Every night on tour, Brotherhood took another hit, label demands, exhaustion. Each one ground down the camaraderie, leaving suspicion and resentment. And the band was burning at both ends, nobody willing to step away from the match. The crowd never saw it, but Britny Fox was already circling the drain. December 1989, Britny Fox tried to hit rewind with Boys in Heat, hoping for another shot. And that album friggin' rocked. The swagger was there, the riffs are solid, but the debut's magic had faded. It stalled at number 79, a harsh come-down after their first shot of the big league. The hair metal scene was cooling, the audience was shifting, and what worked in '88 was already starting to get kind of tired. But behind the scenes, cracks became riffs. Davison was done chasing somebody else's blueprint. He wanted to rip it down and start over, full blues rock, gritty snarl instead of shrieks. Davison saw the black crows climbing, thought about the Stones, not Poison, makeup, high notes, the whole glam look. He wanted it all gone. But the rest of the band was pushing back. They built Britny Fox from nothing, and they weren't about to go watch it explode for somebody else's vision. Smith remembered Davison pushing for changes so radical even diehards wouldn't recognize the band, and the fight for control was hitting fever pitch. Davison, used to steering everything, was up against bandmates who finally demanded their own say. Johnny D later said that Davison was lost in his own vision. Even Boys in Heat was too far from the formula. The friction followed them everywhere, especially on the road. In Europe, opening for Alice Cooper, the pressure cooker hit maximum heat. Long nights, longer grudges, nowhere to escape. The band that once moved as a unit was now 5 guys trapped in a van, each wondering how much longer any of this could last. So Britny Fox was set for a reset, a North American arena tour with Kiss, the kind of golden ticket that bands would just kill for. One sweep across the continent, packed stadiums, a second chance at the big leagues. The Hot in the Shade tour got bumped from February to April. In the music business, a few months can be a lifetime. Boys in Heat wasn't moving units, and the label started hunting for fresh blood. The slot ended up going to Slaughter and Tesla, bands with new records blowing up, pulling the same moves Britny Fox had actually done a year before that. And the loss gutted the band. Instead of kicking it out there in front of thousands, Britny Fox was back to headlining clubs that they had already outgrown. The money was good, but for a band that just missed platinum, it felt like exile. The grind was familiar, but momentum was gone, replaced by this hollow sense of what could have been. Davison, never shy about disappointment, took it the hardest. The fall from grace played out in real time. Every empty seat a reminder that that dream was just cracking. Tensions were snapping, rumors spread. Davison was plotting a new project, looking for the exit while the band slogged through their last club dates. Billy Childs called it. By the end, Davison was a real prick, checked out and itching to bolt. 1 year at the top, and the next unraveling the slow motion. The nightmare was already there, and nobody had the guts to say it out loud. So now it's April 1990, where everything snapped. Britny Fox's story didn't just end with a breakup. It detonated in a hotel hallway. Started as an argument, exploding into an all-out brawl. Dean Davison, wrapped in nothing but a towel, stormed out in a blind rage and smashed Michael Kelly Smith into a door so hard that it supposedly broke Smith's arm. And then he turned on Johnny D next, but the chaos fizzled out. That was it. Davison, stripped of patience and allies, bailed, boarded a train and left everything behind. The tour, the band, the myth they built. And the label's official story tried to clean it up. But Davison walked away, burned out on complacency and homogenization in the industry, frustrated with management, convinced that the Britny Fox sound was prefab junk, but the guys who lived it told a much messier tale. Dean's control issues, relentless arguments, a band that was always going to be his way or nothing. And Johnny D saw a missed opportunity. Years later, he said that maybe they all quit too soon. Maybe Davison was under more pressure than anybody realized. But for the rest, Davison's exit was pure abandonment. A walkout in the middle of the storm, leaving the wreckage for somebody else to sweep up. And meanwhile, Davison would spend years trying to erase Britny Fox from his resume, desperate to torch any trace that he had even been part of it. The band never recovered. But Dean Davison didn't sit still. Out with the lipstick and hairspray and in with Black Eyed Susan. He went full blues rock, exactly what he wanted. Mercury Records actually foot the bill for this, releasing Electric Rattlebone in '91. And Davison was chasing legitimacy, channeling Black Crowes and Stones, early Rod Stewart. Critics caught on fast, stacking up comparisons to Heartbreak Station era Cinderella, saying that Davison was desperate to prove he was more than a glam casualty. But timing never let up. Grunge was busy torching the old guard. Electric Rattlebone landed with a thud, respected but ignored. Davison had the voice and the chops, even a live band, but no audience. And by late '91, as Black Eyed Susan started gaining traction, touring with Bullet Boys and The Scream, Mercury pulled the plug. Tour support gone, momentum shattered. And by 1992, Black Eyed Susan was finished. Another casualty in a decade that ate its own. And Davison's quest for authenticity left him with another unfinished chapter. And meanwhile, with Davison gone, Britny Fox was left holding the bag. A band defined by a voice nobody could really replace, suddenly forced to start from scratch. Michael Kelly Smith, Billy Childs, and Johnny D spent a year searching for a front man who could survive the comparison and make the crowd care again. and that search dragged on. Every audition, another reminder of what they had lost. Eventually, they landed Tommy Paris, a powerhouse with enough swagger for the back catalog and enough grit for something new. But the business is such a shark tank, and Columbia bailed, chalking up Britny Fox as another casualty of the times. But they managed to hustle a deal with East West Atlantic and brought Paris into the studio. And in 91, Bite Down Hard dropped, an album built on defiance, desperation, and hope that maybe there was still room for another shot. Unfortunately, nothing in the 90s was simple for a band with glam roots. When the world moves on, sometimes all that's left is your own echo, and Britny Fox could still hear theirs. And the album had guts, riffs, a frontman who could definitely hit every note. The band saw it as really an evolution, harder, tighter, proof that there was more in the tank. But by 91, Seattle had already rewritten the rulebook. Every radio dial was stuck on Nirvana or Pearl Jam, glam metal was sinking like dead weight. And even though the Britny Fox had shed the glam and dialed up the rawness, the world had already tuned out. The album slipped right through the cracks, barely promoted, barely noticed. And by 92, there was nothing left to fight for. The genre collapsed. Promotion vanished. The band was spent, burnt out, bled dry, watching the last traces of glory disappear in the rearview mirror. The flame that once threatened to ignite everything was just flickered out, leaving smoke and memory of what could have been. And years went by. Britny Fox scattered, chasing new bands, new jobs, and for Davison, a quiet vanishing act. For a long time, it looked like the story was over. Davison wanted nothing to do with the past, and Britny Fox had faded into memory. But time can sometimes dig up what pride tries to bury. As 80s rock nostalgia roared back, something shifted. Around 2010, Davison broke the silence, calling Johnny D, then Billy Childs, and finally Michael Kelly Smith, testing the waters for a real reunion. D was stunned but willing. Unfinished business and ghost put to rest. Childs, burned by old drama, had doubts. Smith, once smashed into a hotel door, still wore the scars, physical and otherwise, and wanted no part of reliving it. But the edges were sanded off a bit by the years. The more the world craved a Britny Fox comeback, the more the past started to feel negotiable. And eventually Smith reached out, Davison answered. By 2023, rumors swirled, not just about one-off shows, but new music as well. And that old lineup, battered and bruised, was actually talking again. Time will tell if that ever takes shape. But the thing about Britny Fox is that every member had the chops, the drive, and the scars to prove that they could really do something. The band burned hot, but unfortunately nobody outruns the fallout. And though nobody knows if the original lineup will ever make peace or step back on stage together, the legend is already written. Part victory, part cautionary tale, all sheer volume. There's always one more rumor and one more chance and one more page waiting to be turned. To my subscribers, I just want to thank you so much. You do freaking rock. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe, get that subscribe button a good smash against a hotel door, turn around and do a spinning roundhouse kick to the like button, join the family, and I want to thank you so much for watching.